read the order from Governor Baker. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Thank you for all of you that are joining us today. I'd like to proceed with a quick roll call. Councilor Selena Reyes. Councilor, you're on mute.
Present.
Councilor Ana Levy.
Present.
Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez. Noted. And the chair is present. Councilors, you all have had your you've all had the agenda. I'm looking at so what we have for new business. There's an agenda item called flooding. Lawrence Street, Councilor Payano and Councilor Selena Reyes. Councilor Reyes, would you like to speak on that?
Thank you, Councilor Payano. I bring this topic because it's very important for our community, especially when it's raining. Today I received a couple video from different points from our community. It's flooding everywhere, so we need to take in consideration what is the step we need to do to find a solution for our residents.
So I'd like to ask, is Director Pena on the line? So Councilor Reyes,
I am.
Oh, great. Thank you, Director Pena, for being online. I know that Councilor Reyes was speaking on this issue a while back when we had the previous storm. I believe it was like maybe a month and a half ago. And I think the concern was that there are certain areas in Lawrence where the streets flood. I know that I've spoken to you about that a while back ago, but I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that and perhaps what the city's doing on that, or in what we could do as councilors to help you identify those potential issues.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I just want to note that I was not aware that I'd be speaking on this topic, so I did not come prepared with any notes or anything. But I'm glad to at least give my my 2 cents on the issue. So obviously this is something that the DPW and the mayor's office, we've looked at this closely. We're all well aware of what the issues are that contribute to flooding, at least from a infrastructure standpoint. And the fact of the matter is that really it's just a combination of increased organics and trash litter in the streets that make their way towards the catch basins, given that they are at the lowest points, and essentially bind the catch basin grate. The flooding that occurred today, the catalyst for that was all of the organics, the leaves that have been falling over the last few weeks that have been binding the catch basins. The solution, although quite simple, is very difficult to implement. The solution really is twofold. It's an increase in the cleaning of the catch basins, as well as an increase in the street sweeping efforts here in the city. As you know, as part of the, or as you may know, as part of the capital improvement plan, over the last several years, we have purchased 2 new street sweepers, which are out in the city on average, every couple of days, but certainly over the last month or so, they're out almost every night through the city. The difficulty that we find is that we're not able to be effective because, as everyone on this council knows, we have a large amount of on-street parking within the city, and we're not able to effectively clean the gutter lines. So really the the issue mostly is, as I mentioned, just to summarize, it's trash and organics. The solution is street sweeping and cleaning catch basins. The problem is we can't do that because there are too many cars on the road. So we sort of have to find a happy middle, a little bit of street sweeping during the day. You know, essentially anytime that we have an opportunity to sweep streets when there are no cars present, we'll take advantage of those opportunities. But because we have very little in terms of regulations as to when and where people can park, it's sort of a guessing game for us. It's really just when we notice that, you know, if we have a foreman who's driving, let's say on Basswood, you know, the foreman will note that, hey, you know, for some reason there's not a lot of cars parked here. Let's get a street sweeper here, you know, pronto, and we get a street sweeper out there, try to take advantage of that. But as far as a programmed and methodical way of street sweeping, we're just unable to do that because, again, of the lax regulations on where and when people can park in the city. I will note that it is something that my department has actually been working on, and I've presented a draft plan to a couple of counselors for some feedback. You know, what we can do, you know, differently. You know, I just want to get some feedback from some counselors. But in essence, what the plan would be is it would restrict parking or mandate alternate parking during certain periods of the year and on certain days to allow our street sweepers to do the jobs that they need to. I know from personal experience that one of the issues that we've received from the residents regarding alternate parking is that they tend to feel frustrated when they're you know, abiding by this alternate parking ordinance for one reason or another, and they do not see any action being taken. So as an example, if they have alternate parking due to street sweeping, the expectation is that the streets in your neighborhood are going to be swept. You know, and if you are parking on alternate sides of the road 4 days a week for the street sweeper to go by 1 day a week, it seems like a waste the other days. So this draft plan takes that into consideration, and it mirrors the trash pickup days and routes, so that, for instance, if you live in Prospect Hill and your trash gets picked up on Wednesday, that Wednesday night, you would have to abide by alternate parking, and the street sweepers would come by that Wednesday night into Thursday morning to sweep the streets on one side of the road. Then on Thursday and Friday, you could go back on parking on both sides of the street. You can park on both sides of the street Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday again until the following Wednesday when it's your trash day again. And now that following Wednesday, if one Wednesday was odd, the following Wednesday even, so now you park on the other side of the street, so our street sweepers get to the other side of the street. So in essence, we're sweeping the entire city every 2 weeks. So that's a draft that has been circulating slowly through the council level, just for some feedback, so we can finalize it before presenting it formally. So I guess that's what I have. I'm open to any questions, of course.
Thank you, Director Pena. I'm sure that the councils have questions, but before that, so it sounds like your current proposal is it once a month type of thing, or are you saying potentially it would be every week?
So ideally, that's a great question. So ideally, we want to do this, you know, the entire season, so spring, summer, and fall months. So we would be sweeping streets 6 days a week. So breaking down the city into 6 distinct locations, again, based on the trash routes. So broken down by Mount Vernon, you know, South Lawrence East, or South Lawrence West, South Lawrence East, Prospect Hill, Arlington, and Tower Hill. And then Sundays would be focused on the downtown area. So really encompassed by Broadway, Union, Haverhill, and Canal Street, the downtown area. So that we would sweep one neighborhood every night of the week, not in perpetuity, but, you know, through those spring, summer, and fall months. And then we suspend operations in lieu of plowing operations in the winter months.
Is it possible? So for example, I remember when I lived in Boston, they did street sweeping, at least in that. I think every neighborhood was different, but in that particular neighborhood, it was every 2 weeks, and it was done during the daytime. So it was done. There was, essentially it was alternate parking, but since it was done during the daytime, there were less cars that had to move to the other side. Have you thought about doing something like that, or are you strictly looking to do that during the evening?
To be quite frank, I did not consider the daytime, but that's precisely the reason why the proposal had been circulating for ideas like this. So if that's something that we have a consensus of the councilors who are obviously the legislative branch of the municipal government, if that's something that we have a consensus and that we want to restrict it to the daytime, we can certainly meet that. We have the equipment. The equipment can be used anytime during the day.
Okay. Well, I know that you still haven't proposed it. Hopefully, we see something soon. I'm sure that I'd love to, whenever you have the time, to take a look at what you guys are working on. It sounds like, hearing from your explanation, one of the reasons that we're seeing this flooding is because the particles are on the streets. One of the ways to solve this is to clean the streets. If it sounds that the biggest impediment is that there's currently no regulations, no system that will allow you to do that in a systemic way, then it sounds like we definitely would want to put a priority on getting those regulations in place, so that way you guys could get to that. So when would be, because I know usually in cities and towns, like around now is usually the time when they stop doing street sweeping. I'm assuming since it's starting to look like it might be well, let me not say that. So I don't jinx anything, but if there is no snow, next year, usually when would street sweeping start?
So it typically starts as soon as we have, decent snow melt, essentially. Once there's no more snow on the ground, so typically on or around April 1st is when it would start.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right, councilors, I'm going to open it up to any questions. Take note that the proposal that Director Pena is speaking about hasn't been something that has been put forward. So if we do want to go more in depth into that proposal, then I think that the suggestion might be that we ask them to submit it to our committee so we could have further conversations. So opening it up for any questions that you guys might have. Councilor Levy? Councilor Levy, you're on mute.
Mr. Peña, you are expressing that the reason why we are having all of this is because of the dirty of the street?
Exactly. Yeah. Just the amount of litter and organics that are currently in the streets.
Because this is happening more and more and more right now. Before, I know that we have some street that, that we were having some flood, but now it's practically everywhere in the city.
Yeah, no, that's another good point. The one difference is more of an external factor that we can't control, and that is the frequency and intensity of the precipitation events that we've been seeing over the last decade. Certainly, quite frankly, what we have had torrential downpours like what we're seeing, throughout the summer and fall months. It just didn't happen as frequently. So whereas we may have had 1 or 2 severe flooding incidents in the city, 10, 15 years ago, now we're seeing 10 of them a year. So that's unfortunately something that we can't really control. But as far as the organics and the litter, that is something that we definitely can.
Because not only I'm seeing this on the street, but I had a complaint about a lot of basements are getting full of water when it's raining right now.
Yep. That's exactly. Yep. So that's exactly my point. So people's backyards are flooding, right? So, people who have, backyards where normally the little bit of green space that they would have, assuming they have green space, would be able to absorb the water. It's coming down so fast and so hard that it's not giving it a chance for the grass and the soil to absorb the water, so it's ending up in people's basements. So that's a really good point, because people don't have drainage systems in their backyard. The backyards were perfectly adequate to absorb it, but what we're seeing is, obviously it's just coming down just way too quickly for the earth to absorb it all at once. But that also brings up another point too that we've been seeing, certainly over the last decade, is we have a lot of paved surfaces. Many homes that would have, driveways for 2 or 3 vehicles and then a backyard. What we're seeing is that the entire backyard is now paved, and now there's, 12 to 15 vehicles in the back of a home, whereas it used to just have a driveway. So all of that water is now, sheeting off of the driveways and the parking lots into the roadway, sometimes even into the foundations and into the basement. So there are many factors that are at play with this.
A couple of weeks ago, I sent you a picture and regarding a flood. I think so also that I sent it to you, Mr. Hermano. Hermano?
Sorry, I had to find you here. You sent a picture of the floods?
Yeah, did you remember that I sent the picture of the floods that you were supposed to answer? That's the owner of the house. That you told me that I'm going to answer her and I'm going to let her know that we're going to pass by. So she emailed me back and said nobody have been called or nobody have been passing by to see the problem that we have in here.
Okay, I'll have to look into it. I can't remember the property address off the top of my head. There was one with a sewer issue, and then one, and I can't remember which one, if you had sent the sewer one or whether it was another one, but I'd be happy to look at.
I sent you one of the sewer, and I sent you one is like when the river start coming up when it's raining, all the water of the river is getting inside because something was supposed to be cleaned and taken care by the city, but for so long nobody have been doing anything yet.
Okay, I'd be happy to look into it for you. I just need the address again, then I can look into the case file.
So another thing is like, I'm the manager at a building in Lawrence. I've been managing the building for the last 15 years. And now, on the last few rain, that is what I already also mentioned, that the basement is getting a lot of water. We have to take a lot of water from the basement. We have been out on the back, that is the parking lot. There's no water in there. The front also is no water, but the basement is getting full of water.
Yeah. So,
go ahead, Director.
as I mentioned, that there's many potential causes of that, but I think that part of it is, again, there's just not enough impervious area. I mean, everything is paved over, so the water just looking for a point where it could enter the sort of a weak point, and it typically is basement foundation walls. There's very little that we can do as far as mitigating that, because our sewer systems, even though they were designed over 100 years ago, they're designed to convey water from the public ways, from streets and sidewalks. What they were not designed to do is to convey water from every single private parking lot. Typically in new construction, certainly, building owners will build drainage systems that are intended to address the problem of flooding, localized flooding within the property. But as far as the city's sewer
But the
infrastructure,
parking lot is belong to the city. The parking lot is belong to the city. I think so that the catch base that is in the back of the building should be checked out and see if there is something in there, because it's causing a lot of problem inside the building right now.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. If the catch basins are matted over, so we can certainly look at the catch basins and see whether or not they are full of debris. If they're full of debris, they have to be cleaned. As I mentioned earlier, if the catch basins themselves are cleaned, then it's possibly the litter on top of the catch basin on the grate that's not allowing the water in. And when the water's not allowed in, it backs up into the roads.
Thank you, Director Pena. Before I move on, Councilor Reyes, do you have any questions for Director Pena?
I don't have any question for now, Councilor Payano. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So, Councilor Pena, I'd love to get you back here at some point in the future to sort of discuss movement in respects to those regulations. And, you know, I think that is extremely vital. And even sort of having these conversations around that when people pave their, because you're right, I've seen a lot of people pave their entire backyard. And sometimes it's not necessarily to put cars, it's just to be able to have barbecues or whatever. And I don't think any thought goes into that this might cause flooding in the future. I think that's an important sort of piece of information that should be sent out. So just so you can keep that in mind, councilors, would you like to make a motion to table this matter, or would you rather send it to the full council to withdraw?
I would like to make a motion to table this matter for just waiting for Alice. I don't know when he was able, Mr. Peter Peña could bring some information on how it's going to be the war, or how there's going to be cleaning the city, the catch basin, that's everything, you know, something that has to be in place. So I see how we can alleviate a little bit the problem that we have.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been second. We'll put it to a vote. Councilor Levy? Councilor Levy on the
Yes.
motion to table? Yes. Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilor Rodriguez is not in at the moment. So that motion has been tabled. Councilors, there is an item I don't want to keep. We have Director Armano here. We've asked him to talk about 6120 coronavirus Lawrence preparedness. I don't want to keep him longer than we need to. So can I get a motion to take that out of table matters?
So move.
Second.
A second. Okay. So there's a motion to take item 6120 out of table matters, put it to a vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez. The chair votes in affirmative. So we have item 6120. Director Romano, thank you so much for being with us today. I know that you, the mayor, a lot of our other directors, across the city, and the Board of Health has done, a great job in informing people as to, where we're at, especially, getting close to Thanksgiving. Last time we met, we thought it would be great to hear from you as to how we are doing when it comes to, COVID in Lawrence, and, any other information that you could share with us.
Thank you, Council Payano. Thank you, councilors. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Mike Amano from Inspectional Services here. Clearly in public health in the city of Lawrence, it's definitely a team effort. We have our local Board of Health, which is operated out of Inspectional Services, at least the administrative branch. We have Director Martha Velez, who's with Health and Human Services, and our Mayor's Health Task Force, of course, and so many other community partners. I think this really is perfect timing with the holiday season coming, Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up, so many times for celebrations. And really in the city of Lawrence, we're trying to encourage people to avoid gatherings, and that's not always easy to do. We have a very family-oriented community. People love to be around their family. People define family in different ways, whereas, to some, a family is maybe just two people living in a house together. To others, a family are cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents and children. And for that reason, it makes it difficult to ask people to stay away from their family. We're also asking people to get tested. We have, right now, the city of Lawrence has almost 8,300 total COVID-19 cases, and that places us third in the Commonwealth, right behind Boston and Worcester, and we're slowly creeping up to Worcester. We've had over 155 residents die from COVID-19. And that's a very real number, and we throw that number around, and sometimes we don't know the stories behind those deaths. For us here, doing the case tracing following COVID-19, we often talk to family members of those who have died and those people who are sick, and we hear some personal stories. So it's, although the number seems big, 8,300, sometimes people wonder, what can we do in the community? Is there anything we should be doing? It's for big cities like us, sometimes we lose hope, but I guess this is the perfect time around the holiday season to really encourage everyone in the community, everyone on this phone call, the same thing that I encourage my staff to do, and that's keep the fight going. You know, there's a lot of cases. We're going to get cases. There's just health inequities that follow our community that we're not going to be able to solve today, but it's those little things that matter. We had just one of our recent deaths. We had a son who had visited his elderly parent, and that's how the parent had gotten COVID-19, and that parent died. And we think to ourselves, if we can just convince one person to stay home, don't go see your elderly parent, don't go travel, don't go hang out during the holidays with large groups, that one person that we can convince to do that could prevent a death in our community, or could prevent dozens of people getting sick. We had one child who was at a daycare. That child had COVID-19, and we found out that the child got COVID-19 from a Halloween gathering. That same Halloween gathering was connected to 5 different households, just one party connected with 5 households. And then we look again at some of the health inequities in our city, and we realize that we're in a very dense population. And it's not unusual for our community to live in a household with multi-generational living conditions where there might be 9, 10 people in one small apartment. So we see that a multifamily that we just investigated the other day had 17 positive patients in one 3-family building. Another one had 12. So when one person spreads the virus from a gathering and they go into a household with 18 other people, this is how the virus spreads quickly. Our same population, we know how strong our workforce is in the city of Lawrence and how much we mean not only to our city, our workers, but how much that means to the Merrimack Valley and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a whole. And even the nation, for that matter. We have factories that ship things all over the world, for that matter. And these people are sacrificing by going to work, and sometimes they're in tight quarters. And businesses, I think, in good faith, have some of the best practices they can have. But we have people that commute together. We have people that enter into a van together. We have people that go from a first shift at one company to a second shift at another company. And they need a paycheck, and they need to survive. And we need them, frankly, to work, because we rely on their services. So every time that one person gathers and they might step into a van, there's a chance that they may pass that virus on to so many people. So with the holiday season upon us, it's such a good reason to really look at what makes up our community and how important it is to stick together, how important it is to realize that this is not just a government effort. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to work long hours. We're going to do everything we can, but we can't do it unless we work together. So you counselors, everybody on this phone call, everybody watching this meeting, it's so important to realize how important it is, how critical it is that everybody participate in the fight. So we started off in the summer, just to throw a couple numbers at you and get a feel of what's going on with COVID-19 in the city. Over the summer, where things were dying down with cases across the Commonwealth, we had about 8 cases per day sometime in early August. And at that time, that was the threshold to be a high-risk community, in the red, as we were calling it. So 8 cases a day put us in the red right when we started the categorization. And we slowly saw an increase of cases. It went from 8 to somewhere around 10, then in the teens, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's gone up about 10 cases per week every week. We're now at 108 cases per 100,000. And that was according to the last published numbers by the Commonwealth. In reality, this weekend alone, just this weekend, 3 days, we've pushed almost 400 cases. And we knew this would happen. We figured the the fall, the colder weather would come back and we might see another spike, and that's in fact what has happened. So there's lots of cases in the city, and it's so important to for people to pay attention to those little things like wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing, staying away from each other, avoiding gatherings, doing everything they can, because we know, again, the health inequities that we face are sometimes unavoidable, but we have to try to battle the things that we have control over. We're testing over 900 people a day, and that's a good thing. In the summer, I think we were somewhere in the 200s, and we've slowly grown that. It's been one of the missions of the city to get people tested. So we were at, I believe, 929 tests per day, and of those tested, 13% are positive. So 13 out of every 100 people were testing a positive. Unfortunately, that's the highest rate in the Commonwealth. And some people have asked, is it because we're testing so much that our numbers are so great? And the short answer is no, that's not the reason. In fact, when we started the big push on testing, I think we were somewhere around 15, 16, 17 in the Commonwealth for testing, but yet we were in the top 2 or 3 for actual results. And again, we're number 1 in the Commonwealth at 13% positive testing rate. So we've been battling it for a long time, and people are getting tired, but I guess the message that I want to send during this holiday season again is to please avoid gatherings. Get tested, but don't use testing as a free pass to gather, because that's not what it's for. Remember, when you get tested, it's a snapshot in time, and it's important to get tested so you're aware and your close contacts are aware, but it shouldn't be used as an excuse to go gather after you get those test results. And stick together. There's a lot of small things that make a big difference. Remember, avoiding one gathering could mean the difference of spreading the virus, to 10, 20, 30 people. And that's really important to recognize. With that being said, I'm going to stop talking. If you have any specific questions about any of our efforts, please feel free to ask.
Councilor, do you have any questions? No. Well, thank you, Director Romano, for keeping us updated. I'm sure that, I would love, if we have a meeting next month, would love to know how things went throughout Thanksgiving. I think, and any means to sort of put forward this information is important, especially, those personal stories. I've come into contact with individuals that still don't believe that COVID is real. I've come into contact with people that don't believe that masks really do anything. I think that there was a lot of misinformation at the beginning of the year, and that's caused a lot of, miseducation issues that I think, we still have to address, because one person just walking around everywhere without a mask, that could be extremely, extremely dangerous. I'm sure that, the next time that we have you here, we could, talk more in depth regarding how you think things are going as far as the businesses. But we can leave that for next month. Thank you again. And if there's anything else you'd like to add, let us know.
Thanks so much. So I appreciate being here. Happy holidays to all of you if I don't see you, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, thank you. Council, is there a motion to table this item?
Happy holiday for you, everybody.
Councilor
Motion to
Levy?
table.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Great. Councilor Levy, I wish we could, make our motions and second them too. All right. So there's a motion to table has
I
been
know,
seconded. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez. The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, the other item of note is item 9720, winter parking ordinance. Is there a motion to take that out of table matters?
So move.
Is there a second? Councilor Levy?
Motion to take out of the table.
So that's so Councilor Reyes made that motion. So I'll take that as a second.
Second.
We'll put it to a vote. Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Levy, Councilor
Yes.
Levy? Yes, okay. Councilor Rodriguez, and the chair votes in affirmative. So we have
Yes.
item 9720, winter parking ordinance. Thank you, Director Director Pena, for being here to speak about that. I also see City Attorney Ruano is here as well. So in our last discussion, I think that there were two things of note that the committee wanted to talk about. Was last year, the council passed a new winter parking ordinance that would that changed from people having to park and doing alternate parking starting December 15th, I believe, from December 15th to April 15th. Instead of having to alternate parking between those months, at any point in time, the mayor could call an emergency session. Could call and put in an emergency order. And during the time where he stated that there was an emergency order, that's when people had to park in alternate sides. There was within that ordinance, there were particular things that needed to be followed before you could declare an emergency. And also, now, looking back, I see it's completely possible, I guess, if potentially that if you do it in a certain way, that you could declare an emergency for the span of 4 or 5 months. But I believe that the spirit of that motion would be that an emergency would be declared for a particular number of days, like while there was a winter emergency, not necessarily for 4 months. I don't believe that that's why councilors ended up passing it, but I do know that because of certain issues, that's kind of what occurred. Essentially, so the two things that we wanted to talk about today was one, from a legal perspective, did we follow the right procedures? And if we didn't, does this mean that individuals were ticketed that perhaps shouldn't have been ticketed? And is there a process allowed in the city to ask for payment of that? So I think that was just recalling some of the things that we were talking about in the last meeting. The second part of discussion was what's going to happen next year? Like, what is the policy? Luckily we haven't had a snowstorm yet. I'm sure one is coming in weeks, if not in the next month or so. So we wanted to be updated on what that new policy was, so that way we could better inform our residents as to what is going on. So let us start with Director Pena. Maybe you could just give us some information as to how your agency, how your department is going to be executing the winter ordinance.
Councilors, as you put it, as far as we're concerned, my department plows snow. That's really what we do. When there's snow or ice on the ground, we plow the snow. We spread salt on the grounds. The mayor's office takes care of declaring the emergency, and we essentially just work with what we're given. So if one side of the road is clear, that's where we plow, with the expectation that the following night the opposite side of that same road would be clear, so that we can do a pushback on that side. And then again, in essence, after a period of 2 days, the entire city is clean. That's really, as far as from the DPW perspective, where we stand with that, is that we're in the operations aspect of the snow removal.
Right. No, and I think that the department is definitely in the operations side, but I think since you're the director, and you have the ear of the mayor, I would assume that things of that nature are worked through you. I think it'd be important for residents to know what law is being followed. Before, I would say, while there were a lot of issues with the switching from one side to the other when there was no snow. A lot of, residents had problems with that. Now what we're faced with is it's a complete unknown. We were, after we passed that law, and I'll say, I was a person that I was saying, no, there isn't going to be the only way that there'll be a winter, that you have to switch parking is if there's a winter emergency. And a lot of people, when that first ticket came through, and folks were being towed, they weren't expecting for there to be a change before December 15th. And I'll say I was asked, but since I never got any official email from you guys, the administration, I'm guilty of giving out the wrong information. But now that it's a whole new year, I think it'd be vital to, before there's a snowstorm, to figure out what it is that we're doing and what policy we're putting in place. I did notice that in Jurumbo, there was a mention that people didn't have to do alternate parking unless there was a snow emergency. But I also remember that last year there was a certain argument as to why we couldn't do that. So I guess what the question I have for you is, has there been any conversation as to what policies, whether written or whether official or unofficial, are we going to be executing this winter? Perhaps
Counselor, my understanding. My understanding is that for this winter season, there is going to be a blanket emergency order spanning from December 1st, 2020 through April 1st, 2021.
Okay. Can I ask why do it that way? When I think the spirit of the ordinance was that essentially it would only be done during the times that there was a winter emergency. Can we legitimately sort of argue that there's a winter emergency for 4 months?
I honestly can't answer that question because I'm not the person who comes up. I don't make that decision.
Okay. All right. Let me open that up for counselors if you guys have any questions on that. Councilor Levy. Councilor Levy. Councilor Levy, you seem to be frozen at the moment. I would suggest that you turn off your video. That might help matters. Councilor Levy, you're frozen. If you turn off your video, the connection might work a little bit better. Do you have any questions, Councilor Levy?
Now?
Yep, I can hear
Can
you
you
now.
hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Councilor Levy.
Yes. So, all right. Are we going to continue with the old winter policy?
No, so Councilor Levy, I think what Director Pena just said is that using the new winter policy, they're going to be declaring a snow emergency from December 1st to April. I forget exactly what date he said, but basically from December
April
to
1st.
April, there's a blanketed emergency.
April 15, no?
I believe it's
December
April 1st.
So Councilor Levy, Director Pena just said from December 1st, and he believed it would be from April 1st.
So you're gonna declare, or the mayor is gonna declare an emergency. And it's gonna be the time that people can park in just only one side of the street and then to move to the other side. The four months.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so it sounds like essentially it's exactly like the old one where they have to keep going from one side to the other, except now they can extend the time for it. So they can do it, whereas before it was strictly from December 15th to April 15th. Now they can declare it
So
this
that people
month.
has to park it from one side of the street and then the other side on the.
Yeah,
So every day they have to park it on one of the side of the street.
correct. Council Levy, any other questions?
No, I'm clear now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Reyes, I don't know if you have any questions.
Just clarification, because I'm a little confused. I think you guys working in the past for the people can allow to parking on both sides. Not emergency.
So I think was it last year or the year before that? It might have been 2 years ago. We passed an ordinance that would potentially allow people to park on both sides during the days that there was not a winter emergency. The ordinance allowed the mayor to declare an emergency, but it was of a temporary nature. So the thought behind it would be tomorrow it's going to snow, so we're going to declare an emergency tonight until DPW no longer needs cars to be parked on that side, and then it would go back to people parking on both sides. That was the thought frame when that ordinance was passed. It sounds like that's not sound like we're not necessarily doing that. What we're doing is declaring an emergency for all of those months, and not just while it's snowing.
Thank you for clarification.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Pena, for kind of letting us know sort of what to expect moving forward. I'm sure we'll have more conversations on that. Attorney Ruano, and you might not. I know I sent you an email. I was not expecting you to be here tonight, but I see that you are, and it could be that you might not have an answer for us. But with the previous ordinance, there was a certain to declare an emergency, it had to be done in a certain way. I'm wondering if that process was followed. And if you don't know, that's fine. We could have that discussion at a further time.
Well, yeah, no, I had looked into that a little bit before. I know you just got that information over to me, but I mean, I think from what I understand is that the mayor did issue a declaration. He did issue those time periods that, whatever it was last year, whether it was December 1st to April 1st. The only thing that I couldn't find is that I couldn't find anything that had been filed with the city clerk, because I know that the new ordinance, that's what it requires. But like I said, I only inquired with the city clerk. I don't know if Brian can basically say, I mean, he was probably living through it last year, so I don't know if notice went out through the the ordinance has that it has to go out through media, that the beacon needs to be used. I don't necessarily know if that was followed. But like I said, because the only thing I didn't know what this was really about until your email about an hour ago. But that's the only thing, is that I know that there was a declaration, but to the extent of how that went out, I mean, maybe Brian Pena could talk about that a little bit, but I do know that nothing was filed with the clerk, because I did inquire with him.
Yeah, so I think that the question that we had, because I know that there during that time there were several residents that were sort of asking us about this, is if there was no, because I know there was no official notice sent to the council, and I, at least at that time, I don't know if further in the future, during the first few days, there was no notice that was sent to the city clerk. It could have been that at a later time notice was sent. So the question that we were asking ourselves is, so what occurs if something like that, like for example, if no notice was sent to the city clerk, does that harm the executing of that ordinance, or does that not matter?
Well, I guess it depends, because I think ultimately, I know you touched upon this at the beginning, is like ultimately what you're trying to figure out, right, is people got ticketed, right? If were they wrongfully ticketed, and what can they do if they were wrongfully ticketed in order to almost get like reimbursed? But so just to go back to that point, I mean, I think that's what happens with all our ordinances and all our procedures is more or less, did they get notice? So that's the part that I don't know, right? Because the ordinance as written now, it has a mechanism to give the residents notice, and that's, the beacon is lit, information goes out in media and maybe a press release, or you try and get the word out, because obviously you can't be fined for something that you didn't know about. So that's the part that I don't know if that happened. I don't know what notice went out to the residents, but I mean, I don't think that, while technically notice to the city clerk is in the ordinance, I mean, I don't know if notice to the city clerk matters if, this was on the radio, this was on local cable TV, if this was the Beacons relay, you know what I mean? I think that's really the point, is, were they given notice? So I guess that's why I thought that maybe because of those things, I don't know if that would be something DPW would have done. Like, are they the ones that turn on the beacon? Are they the ones that put on the radio ads or go on local access cable and do that? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but that's where I would start, just to kind of see, like, did the public have notice of it?
Great question, Director Pena. So on that, I mean, I'm sort of aware what type of marketing was used. Could you, just inform us of what type of marketing was used before? I know that the beacons are not in place, but what type of marketing was used before, and also what type of outreach is going to be done in the future, letting people know that about this winter emergency. I think everybody's is used to after December 15th, but if we're going to do it on before December 15th, that might be a piece of information that people are not aware of, or it might be that there might be confusion around.
Yeah, so the marketing component is coordinated by the mayor's office. Certainly, we can assist, and we do assist. As far as what happened last year, my understanding is that there was a press release that was issued, and then there was a social media component that because we do manage the DPW social media accounts, the social media, and then a press release, as I said. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any other ways that it went out. I certainly do not recall radio ads. As you mentioned, the beacon system is still not operational. So that was certainly not used last year. And I do not recall anything on TV. As far as this year, because again, it will be a blanket emergency declaration, my understanding is that a press release will be issued. And I know that we will be using social media once again. Other than that, I'm not aware of any additional methods that will be used.
Do you have an idea when the beacon system would be in place?
I do not. That's a project that is being undertaken by the fire department, since they operate and manage all of the lighting systems in the city. And I'm not aware as to when that will be operational.
Okay. Counselors, is there, could I get a motion since correspondence to the chief of the fire department to give us an update on the beacon system?
To send a letter to the chief of the fire department.
Okay. So Councilor Levy made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll put it to a vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez. Chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, are there any other questions for Director Pena or Attorney Ruano?
No.
Thank you, Attorney Ruano. Thank you, Director Pena, for giving us an update on this matter. I think that councilors, I think you know, I have a better idea of how we're going to be executing for next year. You know, it looks like it's essentially the same policy as before, except we're starting earlier. You know, the question that I have in mind as being someone that worked very hard in trying to change the system so that way people did not have to switch from one side to the other when it wasn't snowing. That was what the city council passed. That's not what's being executed. And I'm kind of, you know, at the moment I'm at a loss as to sort of what further steps we can take. Part of me is thinking, you know, maybe we should kick this conversation up to the city council level so that there could be a further discussion there. And you know, perhaps to, you know, relook at the ordinance to see if there's anything else that we could do to try to limit the time period for an emergency. When I think of an emergency, I think that it's something that's going to last a few days, maybe a week, you know, something to that matter. Something that's going to last 4 months, that just to me just doesn't sound like the type of emergency that we were thinking about. But that being said, I think councilors, it's up to you. We could table this matter and have further discussion at a committee level. We could bring it up to the full council to have that conversation then. What would you like to do?
Mr.
Councilor
Chairman,
Levy,
can we do a motion to table, but at the same to send it to the full city council?
table, but send it to the full city council.
Can we make a motion to table?
Sure. So essentially, what you're asking is for us to break this item into two motions, where we have A and we have B, and your motion is to table item A and send item B to the full council.
Second.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we'll start with sending item B to the full council. That was seconded by Councilor Reyes. We'll put that up for a vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, we have item A that we're still speaking on. Is there a motion to table that?
Motion to table.
Is there a second? Councilor Levy, vote.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Before there's a motion to adjourn, looking at the agenda, are there any items there that you wish to withdraw? So, could I get a motion to withdraw item 218-18?
What kind of item is that?
So that is, it was put up by me. It was in 2018, there was an HIV surge in Lawrence, and I had requested an update. So I just want to, it doesn't look like we're going to be talking about that anytime soon. So thinking of just withdrawing it from our agenda. Can I get a motion to withdraw?
This is 218,
Yeah, 218-18. There's a motion to withdraw.
18 out of table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We'll put that up for a vote. Councilor Levy.
Second,
No,
We
we're
have
at the
delay
vote.
with the system.
yes.
There's no-
Yeah, Councilor Levy. Yeah, the video is just a little slow. Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, I would also like to take out item, hold on, let me just see. Can we take item 133-17 out of tabled matters?
Mm. Which one is the item?
So item 133-17, Police Department Lawrence Trust Act. Council, Council Levy, you frozen? Councilor Reyes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So
Councilor Reyes, are
please,
you able
can
to hear
you
me?
repeat it again?
Yes.
Sure. So first of all, councilors, were you able to
Can
hear
you
me?
hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Levy, I can hear you. Okay. So item 133-17, Lawrence Police Department,
I'm
Lawrence
able
Trust
to hear
Act.
you now, yes.
Okay. So item 133-17, Lawrence Police Department, Lawrence Trust Act. Can I get a motion to take that out of tabled matters?
So move.
Is there a second?
Motion to take it item 133-18.
Second.
So
Out of table
Councilor
matter.
Levy, so you are seconding. You are seconded. It was already it's already a motion by Councilor Reyes. So we'll put that to a vote. Councilor Levy,
Yes,
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilor, so usually every quarter, we haven't done this in a bit, but every quarter we would ask the chief of police to give us an update on the Trust Act. So if we can send correspondence to the chief of police on that matter, is there a motion to do that?
motion to send a letter to the chief of police to send a copy of that, the True Act.
So just to be clear, so Councilor Levy, is your motion to send correspondence to the chief of police so that way he could give us an update on the Trust Act?
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, just making sure. Councilor Reyes?
Yes, that's what I said.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, perfect. I will put Councilor Levy. Councilor
Yes.
Reyes?
Yes.
Okay. The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, can I get a motion to table item 133-17?
Motion to vote item 173.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Vote, Councilor Levy,
Yes,
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. You know what? Let's leave it there. Councilors, is there a motion to adjourn? Well, first, is there any other
Motion to
any item?
adjourn.
Any table that? Well, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
A vote, Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you all for being here tonight. Hopefully we can meet again next month. Hey, listen, in the age of COVID, doing these Zoom internet calls, there's always issues. So I appreciate your patience and the patience of everybody watching. All right. Have a good evening.
Happy holidays.
Gracias.
Happy holidays. Take care. Eat a lot, but be careful.
Yeah, definitely. Bye.